Moving on now, in this exclusive KYMA report, we're talking about foreign and domestic acts of terror, something we've been hearing and seeing too much of recently. Some of these incidents happening close to home, the latest and closest in San Bernardino, California. News 11's Asal Rezaei begins the series of reports about when terror strikes. Good morning, Asal.
Max, good morning. Here's what sets us apart. In this area of the desert Southwest, we essentially have most branches of the military, MCAS, YPG, NAF, even Border Patrol playing a huge role in homeland security. But what would be the impact of this military presence on the home front when terror strikes?
The commander for NORTHCOM implemented an increase in threat condition level. So we have a heightened security level now all across North America.
That increase happened nearly 2 years ago as the branches of our military continuously work hard to improve the way they're keeping Americans safe. It's hard for these brave men and women to prevent the unknown. Here's a look at the top 50 countries ranked by global terrorism for just this past year. Statistically, the United States sits in the middle when it comes to the impact terrorism has on our country.
We can't really get into specifics as to what we do to respond to any kind of threat. What I can tell you, though, is that we're continuously assessing and shifting our security posture to ensure that we remain unpredictable.
That seems to be the key in fighting terror, remaining unpredictable and making sure our strong military presence is never compromised.
There's a lot of potentially security sensitive stuff at YPG. I'm talking about weapon systems, munitions, things like that. And that would be our major concern, to make sure that remained very, very secure.
The military bases here are so big, fundamentally, they are towns within our town, hosting thousands of service members and their families.
Our main responsibility would be on base, where, there's the posse comitatus laws, which means that the military doesn't enforce civilian law enforcement.
In case of an act of terror, all branches that are crucial parts of our community are prepared to take control.
We maintain a very close working relationship with local law enforcement to ensure that there's continuous information flow in and out of the base.
In keeping our communities secure, military personnel suggest communication is key in preventing and assessing acts of terror. Reporting in Yuma, Asal Rezaei, News 11.
This is Max Tarlton. When it comes to terror and an active shooter situation, law enforcement in the Yuma Metro says they're prepared. Steve Suho with the Yuma Police Department says that could include detectives and school resource officers if terror strikes during the week.
If you're talking about whether it's a domestic terrorist, international terrorist, or just somebody who decides they want to go and do something because they've got an agenda, the response is going to be the same.
That response typically immediate to take care of the threat as soon as possible.
What normally happens is the first couple officers on scene, they'll team up and they'll go in search of the shooter.
Though the response may be similar for any situation in eliminating an active shooter, it's the location that makes the most difference on how law enforcement will tackle the situation. For instance, if something were to happen right here in downtown Yuma, the response would be different than, say, at a local school. This is Tony Badia, and he's here to make sure everyone, officials and civilians, are informed and prepared.
My role as emergency manager is not only to prepare our first responders and provide training for them, but it's also to provide that to our community.
In times of emergency, they're also there to make sure law enforcement can do their job correctly.
Whether it's financial, getting equipment brought to them.
Now, when it comes to public places like businesses or shopping centers, action will be met with more support from other local organizations.
Yuma Palms, for instance, you might see that we evacuate people within a 2-mile radius of that.
And preventative maintenance. The Yuma Police Department says it's all about keeping your eyes peeled for something out of the ordinary.
If you see something, say something. We need the public to let us know if they see something suspicious.
Until then, Yuma County is prepared for when terror strikes.
This is Renee Summerour reporting. Now, local school personnel say they're working hard to coordinate a plan of action to ensure teachers and students in all of Yuma's school systems are safe if terror strikes. Tom Tyree, superintendent of the Yuma Unified School District, tells us what the district has been working on in the case of a terror-like emergency on campus.
I think you have to try to anticipate any possible event that could possibly occur, and then have a plan or a response to that plan. Once you create the plan, then your staff need to be aware of it. You need to practice it.
It was at that very meeting that I saw firsthand what school staff and police officers are doing to work together in the event of attack of any kind.
Our office, here's where the issue took place. Now given this new information, what might we do?
You guys are in a staff meeting and you're not there and something happens, who's going to handle that school? Our teachers are.
Or when I'm on campus hunting that shooter down, I'm looking to go into the sound of the gunfire, and I'm going to try to bypass the rooms that I can.
Things are wanting to make sure that they are that situation is conducive to preventing casualties.
Now that you have a little peace of mind on how safe your children are in school, what about your safety? Every day you go out to restaurants and malls and go along with your daily activity, but what are city officials doing to keep you safe?
The police department and the fire department have trained for those specific events. For example, at the mall after closing hours, our special teams have gone in there and actually cleared the mall in practice.
It's drills like this that the El Centro city manager Ruben Duran says, along with other Imperial Valley law enforcement, practice on occasion to prevent terror-related attacks, especially in high-traffic public places.
Important role that I have is to ensure that they have the opportunity to have that training and the equipment. I think anyone who would watch the San Bernardino incident noticed those armored vehicles. Well, we have one of the two in the valley, and we coordinate with the Sheriff's Department in those trainings to utilize those pieces of equipment.
When it comes to El Centro's blueprint for public safety and Yuma school safety meetings, the key here is planning. With all of our branches of military and emergency response teams, a plan of action, clear communication, and practicing of the different scenarios is what's going to keep us alert, prepared, and unlike some recent terrorist acts across the country, ready for when terror strikes. Renee, Summerour in the studio. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Renee.